Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I want to go over something that some of you might be familiar with, but some of you might not be. I want to go over data in Excel. It used to be that Excel was pretty much the number one place to go and work with data, especially in terms of sorting and collecting, but it seems like now that people have a lot more options, and so it's less likely, or at least less common, that you're really familiar with Excel and know how to use it as a tool. And that's fine. There's no rule that says you have to use Excel, but it is still kind of the common gold standard. And there's a lot that you can do in Excel that you probably can also do in a parallel or a similar program like Google Sheets or something like that. But what I want to do for today is give you some of the tools in Excel that you are going to run into as you're working with collecting data. And so we're going to talk about what we can use Excel for in terms of sorting data, collecting data, cleaning data, and what that kind of looks like. This is also a great opportunity to kind of see what your data set should look like. And then also talking about how we can use Excel. It's a really easy place to manipulate your data. And by that, I mean, if you want to make any adjustments, simple calculations, and even how we can do some coding with simple if-then statements in Excel. You can also do a lot of calculations in Excel. You can use Excel to generate forms, and a lot of people will use Excel for budgets and that kind of stuff. You can also use it to create graphs and charts and do simple regressions with an add-on toolkit. So some of you might have learned this in 140 or in other classes, but if you haven't, I just want to give you a sense of how to use Excel, some of the most basic functions that we'll be using that might come up for you as you're doing your research project. So let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so let me get Excel opened up over here for you all. I'm just going to open up a new workbook. And so these are just going to have whatever name you want, just like any other standard file. Excel is just like Google Sheets and just like any other spreadsheet software. I know Mac uses Numbers, which is a little bit different, and honestly, I know very little about. But it's going to have the data organized by columns and by rows, and then they can be sorted. They can be formatted however we like. So we can format them by font, size and type. We can format them with colors. We can also format them in terms of what type of data we're putting in there. So general is sometimes the default, but we might have numbers, which we're definitely going to want to have our numbers coded as numbers when we're uploading them into statistical software. You can have currency, date, percentages, fractions, and those kinds of things. It might put numbers into scientific format, which is when there are a lot of decimals. They shorten it by raising it into the whatever power. So that kind of thing can happen. The other great thing that you can do with Excel is you can ask it to insert graphs and tables, which is great. The recommended charts here kind of pops up depending on your data, but you can make bar charts, you can make scatter plots, you can do a lot of different stuff with your data. And Excel actually does a pretty good job. I think they make really attractive graphs, so I think that's pretty fun. You can also use formulas in Excel, which is one of the things I'm going to ask you to do. And one of the main reasons that it's useful to learn how to use Excel is because when you're downloading or collecting data off the internet, a lot of times that's how it's going to be organized. So let me just show you two of the most common places where economists might be getting data is going to be the US Census Bureau and the University of Michigan Panel Study of Income Dynamics, or the PSID. PSID is data collection that the University of Michigan does consistently. They do individual and family level data, and so it's really good if you're trying to do some kind of cross-sectional research. So if I want to look at individual level data from maybe the early 2000s, asking about who knows, housing. Well, that's not how you spell house. That's not going to get any results. Let's see what pops up. Here we go. We've got a bunch of stuff. Let's say I want to look at, here, let's look at this data set here. I'm going to pull these two, and if I go and add them to my cart, PSID will then let me check them out. The cart is just the terminology they use. You don't have to pay, but you do have to register to get their data, but it's really great data, so I recommend it. But when you do go ahead and download that data, it's going to end up being in either an Excel file or HTML or PDF. And you're going to want it to be an Excel file of some kind so that you can edit it. The codebook I don't care for as much. The codebook is just telling you what each category header means. You do want a codebook. And then I'm going to download it as a Microsoft Excel sheet and pull that data. And sometimes it takes some time depending on how much you're pulling, but what you're going to end up getting is a data set in Excel that has a lot of variables that you do need and a lot of variables that you might not need. So let me give you an example here. There we go. If I open up this data set, we'll see it's in an Excel file, and it's going to be just like this book, except now it is filled with variables. And we'll see that the variables have some kind of code at the top. That's where the code book comes in handy. In the code book, it will say, oh, ER 3002 or whatever is this. So maybe this number might be monthly income. This number might be, I don't know what that number might be, but I'd have to read the code book to find out. And so if we go to the code book, it'll tell us, right? The code book says, a lot of these variables are just categorizing who the people are. But what I'm going to be interested in maybe is maybe not the sequence number or the interview number, but I might be interested in the relationship to the reference person for whatever I'm doing. The number of jobs a person has had in the past year, only 1, 2, 3, 4, didn't have a job. So that's ER 35021. So I might come back here and say, okay, ER 35021, and I would rename that number of jobs, something like that. And so that's why we care about Excel. That's why I want you to look at it, is because you're going to get a data set like this, whether you're pulling it from PSID or the Census Bureau or pretty much any other data collection site. It might be a CSV file or an Excel file, and a CSV is just another form of Excel, but that's what you're going to be dealing with. A lot of times the data is going to be organized in a single sheet. So we call a file, an Excel file, a workbook. And then at the bottom, we have these. If you look at this example here, we have these sheets at the bottom. And each of these sheets is sort of like another page in the file. And so this is an example that a student used pulling data from the U.S. Census Bureau, and they pulled county level data on educational attainment, the number of people at each level of education by the year. And so there's a sheet for 2010, a sheet for 2011, and so on. And then you can take that data and put it all together in one big Excel sheet, which I've got right here. And I've just got this hidden. Let me unhide that. And so we can see here the number of people with a certain level of education. I believe that's a high school diploma or a bachelor's degree, the number of people living in poverty, the percentage of the population who speak English at home, immigration status, disability, and these are proportions. And so again, you'll see all this data is here in Excel, and so you're going to want to be able to do stuff with it. You can do simple calculations, you can do some simple coding, and that's the next thing I want to do. The other thing you can do that's really easy and straightforward is sorting your data. So for example, here, if I want it, right now I've got it by county, and I've got it by year, and then I've got my observations for each county and each year. This is a panel data set, so we want to make sure we have the same year for every county and every county represented in every year. And so one thing I'm going to want to do is sort this. You can either use this sort filter button here, or if you're using a smaller window, you might not be able to see it. So you can go to data, and there it is again, sort or filter. And it's going to generally assume you have headers. Headers just means, hey, I'm labeling these at the top. If you don't have headers, it'll just name the columns. But in this case, I do have headers. I'm labeling things county, year, education, poverty. And so I want to sort by year first, and then I can even add a second level. And then I want to sort by county. And that's going to go ahead and allow me to sort it by the values, smallest to largest, or A to Z. I can reverse it if I want. And now I've got all of the counties in 2010, and then all of the counties in 2011. And so that's one really easy, simple thing to do. The other thing we can do is we can do simple calculations. Simple calculations are where we can divide, subtract, multiply. We can do that kind of stuff. You might want to be doing that if you're trying to adjust for inflation or turn a population value into a percentage. So if I have the number of people who speak English at home, but I want to get the percentage, then what I would do is I would go ahead and insert a equation. So let's see. What I can do is pull up this data from the U.S. Census Bureau on the county level population total. So this is going to give me the total population in a county in a given year. Since I'm looking at California, that's what I'm going to want to pull. So I'm going to pull that data up, and I actually already have it over here. And so that's this data. And so now I can see I've got all those same counties and I've got those same years. And so I want to add this to my previous data set. Not that data set, not that. Where'd it go? Oh, where'd it go? Well, I lost my Excel sheet. That's not great. There it is. Okay. Well, that's right. Sorry about that. I forgot what I was doing. So I can take this, and since it's pretty well organized now, because I have it all sorted, I can use it and add in this this data by county and by year. So I've got every county, Alameda through Yuba for 2010. And so I'm going to put in another category. I'm going to hide these categories, these variables, and I want to add a new variable, and it's going to be total population. And you definitely can do abbreviations, like you want it to kind of be transparent what you're saying, but total population. And then here I've got the total population for these counties, starting with Alameda and going all the way down to Yuba. And I can go ahead and copy that and paste it in here. And now I've got, and you want to make sure that you've got everything matched up before you go and do a lot of this. So I want to make sure, okay, the counties all match up. You might do a spot check, but the one thing I'm going to make sure is it stops. It goes from Yola to Yuba. This data set, I know she dropped some of the student dropped some of the counties. So a lot of the smaller counties aren't in here. So I do have to drop out things like, Tehama County and Del Norte County and that kind of stuff. But then I can do cool calculations, and I can go and do that for every year. And then I can say, okay, this is the total population. This is the population not living in poverty. So what is the percentage? That is a simple equation. So I can do, if I want to do an equation, you always start with the equal sign, and then you can use parentheses, and you can use anything on your keyboard that's a mathematical symbol. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, exponents, anything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get this population rate. So I'm going to do this number, this cell, and then I'm going to do the slash for divided by, and then this cell. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my parentheses, and I get a percentage. Now, do I have to go through and type that every time? Heck no. If you look at the box here, this little green box in the corner, when your cursor goes over it, it's going to change to a black cursor, a little black plus sign. And so you can pull that equation down and it'll do it for the whole column. And now that's a really easy way to do calculations. So again, if you want to do population rates, if you want to adjust things for inflation by controlling for the CPI or other measure of inflation, if you want to take logs of something, if you're dealing with something that experiences an exponential rate, so if you're dealing with a lot of stuff, if you're dealing with money or prices, you might want to take logs of them, wages. You can do that in here. The other way you can do this is you can create a dummy variable. So let's say I want to isolate Sacramento County. I think my research question says, hey, there's something special about Sacramento County. Maybe I want to do a Sacramento dummy variable. So I want it to be 1 if it's Sacramento and 0 for everything else. I can ask Excel to do that. It's an if-then question. So it's another equation, so I'm going to use the equal sign, and then I write if, and then open parentheses, and it'll tell you, you can see here on the Excel sheet there, it shows you the sort of logical format, but the basic idea is you want to say, if a cell is this, then this, if not this. So if a cell says, so I'm going to say if anything in column B, because that's where the counties are, if column B, and I'm going to start with B2 because I'm in N2 right now, and that's kind of one of the things you want to keep track of is where you are. If B2 equals, and then in quotes, I want it to say Sacramento County, California, and it won't let me pull it from over there. So I'm going to have to write it in myself, and you want to make sure you write it correctly. We'll find out if I'm typing it correctly when it works or doesn't work. Then 1, otherwise 0. And let's see what it says. So here it's going to say, okay, this is not equal to Sacramento County, California, so it's going to be a 0. Now I can do the same thing, pull this equation down, and I can go all the way to the bottom. And if it works, every time where there's a 1, it should be for Sacramento County. So this might not be what you want to do, but let's say you've got data that is describing someone as a smoker or not, and it's not coded. You can create a dummy variable for that using these if-then statements. You can even add more categories. Maybe I want to single out all the counties with a population over 1 million or over 100,000. I can do that with one of these if-then statements. And so it really allows you to kind of do more with the data you already have using some coding and creating some numerical variables. So it can help you with taking categorical variables and making them numerical, or playing around and categorizing the numerical variables you have. So that's another fun thing you can do. Other things you can do, you can do simple calculations or complicated calculations. There's other formulas and equations and conditions in there. If I want to calculate, say, the average of something, I can do AV, and then I just select all the numbers I want. You can either select them by drawing a box around them, or you can say, hey, again, column M, I want numbers 2 through 41, close parentheses, and it's mad at me. I've got an error. Invalid name. Oh, that's because I didn't spell out average. There we go. Now it's giving me the average. I can get, I can also ask it to give me, say, the standard deviation of that same category from M2 all the way to M41 and stuff like that. So there's a lot you can do in Excel. The more you know, the easier a tool it is to use. It's not the only tool you use, but it is nice. It is helpful. And so I just wanted you guys to have a sense for how to do stuff with it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what other questions you have. Those were the main things I wanted to go over. Have a great day. I'll see you around.